What if I told you that one of the Catholic Church's greatest saints was known for organizing theater performances, teaching circus tricks, and encouraging young people to have fun? Meet Saint John Bosco, the priest who revolutionized education and youth ministry through the radical power of joy. His story will challenge everything you think you know about becoming a saint. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the extraordinary life of Saint John Bosco, also known as Don Bosco. This 19th century Italian priest didn't just serve God. He transformed an entire approach to working with young people that is still used around the world today. From humble beginnings to miraculous interventions, his story is filled with adventure, innovation, and supernatural encounters that will leave you amazed. If you enjoy learning about remarkable saints and their impact on our world, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Let's begin this incredible journey. Our story begins in 1815 in the small village of Becchi, near Turin, Italy. John Bosco was born into a peasant family, and his father died when John was just 2 years old. But here's where the story gets fascinating. When John was 9 years old, he had a dream that would shape his entire life's mission. In this vivid dream, John found himself in a courtyard filled with children who were fighting, cursing, and behaving badly. Disturbed by what he saw, young John tried to stop them with his fists. Suddenly, a mysterious man appeared, radiant and noble, who told John, "Not with blows, but with kindness and love you must win over these friends of yours." Then a beautiful lady appeared beside the man and said, "Take charge of them." She showed John how the wild children transformed into wild animals, and then, through gentleness and patience, back into lambs. The lady told him, "In due time, you will understand everything. This wasn't just any dream, it was a prophetic vision." The man and woman in the dream represented Jesus and Mary, and they were showing John his future mission, to work with difficult, abandoned youth through love rather than punishment. This dream would guide every decision John made for the rest of his life. Growing up in extreme poverty, John's path to priesthood seemed impossible. His family couldn't afford education, let alone seminary training, but John was determined and resourceful. He taught himself to read and write, often studying by candlelight late into the night. To support his education, John learned various trades and even mastered circus skills, juggling, acrobatics, and magic tricks. But here's the brilliant part. He used these talents strategically. He would gather crowds of young people with his performances, and once he had their attention, he would share stories about faith and morality. Even as a teenager, John understood that you had to meet people where they were. His mother, Margaret Bosco, played a crucial role in supporting his vocation. Despite their poverty, she made enormous sacrifices to help John pursue his calling. She would later become his closest collaborator in his work with youth. In 1841, at age 26, John was finally ordained as a priest. But instead of accepting a comfortable parish position, he felt called to work with the most challenging population of all, the street children and young criminals of industrial Turin. Industrial Turin in the 1840s was a harsh place for young people. Child labor was common, education was scarce, and many boys lived on the streets, surviving through petty crime. The traditional approach was punishment and imprisonment, but Don Bosco had a radically different vision. In 1846, he established the first oratory of St. Francis de Sales, not just a school, but a complete youth center that combined education, recreation, religious instruction, and job training. What made it revolutionary was Don Bosco's educational philosophy, which he called the Preventive System. Instead of punishing bad behavior after it happened, Don Bosco focused on preventing it through 3 key elements: reason, religion, and loving kindness. He believed that if you treated young people with respect, gave them engaging activities, and showed them genuine love, they would naturally choose good over evil. The oratory was like nothing anyone had ever seen. Boys could come for education, but they could also play games, watch theatrical performances, learn trades, and participate in music and sports. Don Bosco himself was constantly present among the boys, playing with them, teaching them, and showing them that religion could be joyful rather than oppressive. Critics called his methods too lenient, but the results spoke for themselves. Boys who had been written off by society were transforming into productive citizens, skilled workers, and even priests. Word spread, and soon Don Bosco was caring for hundreds of young people. Don Bosco's life was marked by extraordinary supernatural events that even skeptics couldn't explain. One of the most famous involves his mysterious dog companion, Grigio. This large, wolf-like dog would appear whenever Don Bosco was in danger, protecting him from attackers and guiding him safely through threatening situations. The dog would vanish as mysteriously as it appeared, and no one ever discovered where it came from or where it went. But the miracles went far beyond mysterious animals. Don Bosco frequently experienced prophetic dreams that warned him of future events, helped him locate missing people, and guided his decisions. He could multiply food when the oratory was running short. On multiple documented occasions, small amounts of bread and soup would miraculously feed hundreds of hungry boys. Perhaps most remarkably, Don Bosco had the gift of bilocation, being present in two places simultaneously. There are numerous testimonies of people seeing and speaking with Don Bosco when he was verifiably somewhere else entirely. One particularly moving miracle occurred during a cholera epidemic. When one of his boys was dying, Don Bosco promised the Virgin Mary that if the boy lived, he would build a church in her honor. The boy recovered instantly, and Don Bosco kept his promise by constructing the beautiful Basilica of Mary Help of Christians in Turin. What started as a small oratory in Turin soon became a global movement. Don Bosco founded the Salesians of Don Bosco, 1859, a religious congregation dedicated to youth education and evangelization. He also established the Daughters of Mary Help of Christians with Saint Maria Mazzarello, extending his mission to include young women. Don Bosco had an incredible vision for global expansion. He sent missionaries to Argentina, establishing schools and oratories throughout South America. His educational system spread to every continent, adapting to local cultures while maintaining its core principles of reason, religion, and loving kindness. By the time of his death, Don Bosco had established dozens of institutions caring for thousands of young people. But more importantly, he had trained hundreds of priests and religious sisters who would continue his work for generations to come. The Salesian family today includes over 15,000 priests and brothers and 11,000 sisters worldwide, operating in 134 countries. They run schools, universities, technical colleges, and youth centers, continuing Don Bosco's mission of serving young people, especially the poorest and most marginalized. What made Don Bosco truly unique among saints was his approach to holiness through joy. He famously told his boys, "Be cheerful, study, and pray, but be cheerful." He believed that sanctity and sadness were incompatible, and that true religion should bring happiness, not burden. This philosophy was revolutionary in 19th century Catholicism, which often emphasized penance and suffering. Don Bosco showed that you could be deeply holy while also being fun-loving, playful, and engaged with the world. His feast day is January 31st, and he was canonized by Pope Pius XI in 1934. The Pope called him the father and teacher of youth, and declared him a patron saint of apprentices, editors, publishers, and school children. Don Bosco's influence extends far beyond the Catholic Church. His educational methods influenced modern pedagogy, and his youth-centered approach has been adopted by secular organizations worldwide. The idea that young people respond better to trust and engagement than to punishment and control is now considered common sense, but it was revolutionary in Don Bosco's time. Saint John Bosco's life teaches us that holiness doesn't require withdrawal from the world. Sometimes it requires diving deeper into it with love and joy. He showed that we can serve God by serving others, especially those who need us most. His legacy reminds us that every young person has potential, that education should develop the whole person, and that faith should be a source of joy rather than fear. In our current world, where young people face new challenges, but still need guidance, mentorship, and hope, John Bosco's message remains as relevant as ever. What aspect of Saint John Bosco's life inspired you most? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible saint stories. Until next time, remember Don Bosco's words: be cheerful, study, and pray, but be cheerful.